So let's look at 5C. Remember, if you don't have the hard copy, please just stay organized on lined paper. Our scenario says the cost of running a commercial on television during a particular program depends on the number of people that watch the program. The greater the number of people that watch the program, the higher the cost of running the commercial. Okay, so that makes sense, right? The more people that watch, the more popular that time slot is, so it's more expensive. What is the perfect example of when that happens? Who knows? Does anyone know when commercials are super expensive?
Isn't it during the Super Bowl?
Bingo. I thought maybe one of my football people were going to tell me that answer. But yes, exactly, Tim. Right? So many people watch the Super Bowl that the time slots for commercials are so expensive because there's a higher demand. Okay? So it tells us here a recent survey of the local news program in your area indicates that 2 out of every 5 people that watch the news, that watch a news program, specifically watch NBC News. Write a ratio that compares the number of people who watch NBC to the number of people that watch the news. So, what is a ratio? A ratio is it's another word for a ratio.
Comparison between two subjects.
Perfect. A comparison between two things. Exactly. Another word we could use? How do we usually write ratios? Fraction. Bingo. So we're going to write a fraction. So I'm going to put a fraction bar. What it's asking us to do is write a ratio that compares the number of people with NBC versus any news program. So let's go to the bold. How many people watch NBC versus how many total? Let's look at the bold. What does it say? Hello.
2 out of 5.
2 out of 5, exactly. So our ratio is going to be 2 NBC. I'm going to be very specific. News viewers over 5 any news viewers. So that any news viewers means, okay, maybe they're watching ABC, maybe they're watching CNN, maybe they're watching Fox, right? So it's saying out of 5 people who are watching the news, 2 of them are specifically watching NBC News. This is the ratio we're going to use for all the questions. Okay, so make sure we wrote 2 out of 5 correctly. 2 is up top. That represents NBC. And 5 means any news. So use the survey results to answer the following questions. Use a complete answer. So let's start 2 together. How many people are watching NBC News if there are 10 people watching any news? So let's just first say, what are we looking for? What's N going to represent? Are we looking for how many apples there are at the store? Max. Exactly. So N represents the number of people or viewers watching NBC in particular. So when I do my proportion, remember a proportion is 2 fractions. I start with my sample. Yesterday, we used the charts as our sample. Today, they gave us the ratio, okay? In the beginning, they told us that it is 2 NBC, and I'm just going to write NBC. We don't need to write the whole thing, over 5 any news. That's my first ratio. A proportion is to set 2 of them equal. Our second ratio now comes from this specific problem. So we need NBC up top. So what number represents NBC? 10, right? It says NBC. Oh, I apologize. Oh, no. Hold on a second. Careful about that. NBC, we just said was what?
2.
Well, in our ratio, but look at what we just said. Let N represent
people watching NBC.
NBC. So N is what's on top because NBC has to be on top. Any news is on the bottom, and it says 10 people watch any news. So 10 goes on the bottom. Okay, our labels have to match. Now that we have that, we can cross multiply, right? So we have 2 times 10. What's 2 times 10? 20 equals 5 times n is 5n. And then after we cross multiply, we divide. So 20 divided by 5 gives me 4. 4 equals n. So what does that mean? There are 4 people watching what? Any news or NBC? What? What did we just say N represents?
NBC.
NBC. Okay. Okay, everybody try number 3 right now. Don't move on, just do 3. And then if you get an answer, please put it into the chat, but please do private chat. Don't do public because then that gives everybody a chance without seeing the answer. Okay? So figure out what am I looking for, set up a proportion, and then solve it. Okay? I'll give you guys a minute to try that. Okay, this is the proportion you should have had. If you were stuck on that, please try to solve that proportion now with your cross multiplying and then type in an answer. Okay, now that I have this proportion up, everyone really should be able to cross multiply and solve that. So once you have the answer, put that into the chat. Did you put it into the... Oh, it didn't show up. Oh, that's okay. Oh, everyone's putting things in. I apologize. It wasn't showing up that people were typing. That's all right. Private is good because then people don't see the answers and then they can try it on their own. That's why I asked for private. But so let's now finish this up to understand. Again, it's saying how many are watching NBC. So that's my variable is number of people watching NBC. We start with the ratio we were given, and then we set a ratio equaling to what we know. What we know is 1,000 watching any. So 1,000 goes on the bottom, and my variable is up top this time. So now I cross multiply, right? So 5 times that. It doesn't matter which pairing I do first. Please be clear of that. So I get 5 times n is 5n, and 2 times 1,000 is 2,000. And then we divide by 5. In that case here, we get n equals 400. And then make sure you're writing your sentence, right? The direction said write your answers in complete sentence. So that 400, we go back to what we said n is number of people watching NBC. So that means there are 400 people watching NBC. Any questions? So the next page is the same type of thing. Let's just recall at the very top. Let's fill in those blanks. What's the ratio we're using? How many NBC News? 2. Good. Over how many any news? 5. Okay. So just write that there so that you have it. Is everyone okay for me to keep sliding it? We're on to the next page, everybody? Okay. So number 3 says how many people are watching any news if there are 20 people watching NBC. So how many people watching any news? That means N represents number of people watching any news. And this time we know 20 people are watching NBC. So everybody should have the first half of this correct. What comes first in my proportion? Good. Max is the only one answering things. So Max is going to get 100, but what about everybody else, right? Come on. So 2 NBC over 5 any news equals, all right, this time we have 20 and N. Where does the 20 go? Top or bottom, Alyssa? Careful. The top, because it says 20 NBC. And look at my label. NBC is up top. Okay? This is different from the last one. The last one, we were given the any, so that's why we had a number on the bottom. So 20 NBC, and this time I'm looking for any news. Once I have my proportion, then we should all be pros at cross multiplying. 2 times N is 2N. 5 times 20 is good, 100. Divide each side by 2. And 100 divided by 2 is 50. So 50 means that there are 50 people watching what? Someone new. Good. Any news. Okay, everybody complete number 4 right now. Okay, complete number 4 right now. Go for it. If you have an answer, you can put it into the private chat when you are gotten there. Okay, so let's take a look. People are chiming in well. Okay, please listen to this before we head off to lunch. Okay, so we're looking for any news. Again, we're using the ratio of 2 to 5. Since we're looking for any news, N is on the bottom. What they've told us is 200 NBC. And so now we cross multiply. 2n equals 5 times 200, which is 1,000 exactly. Divide by 2, and n equals 500. So very good for people who said that. Please just make sure you are writing a complete sentence. When you come back from lunch, we're going to finish 5 together and then start worksheet D. All right? Have a good lunch.